Everybody, this is Izzy here coming to you with my spoiler talk for It Chapter 2. Before I go any further with this video, I want everybody who hasn't watched the film and maybe hasn't read the book, is not familiar with the content that I'm about to share with everybody, please do not watch this video any further. But anyone who is familiar with the book and the films, feel free to continue watching. Maybe we'll agree and maybe we'll disagree. Either way, at the end of the video, please let me know what you thought about the film. Provide a like and maybe let me know what you thought about it in terms of how faithful it was to the novel, and what scenes did you like, and what did you feel that could have been improved upon. Without further ado, let's go ahead and get into this spoiler talk. One of the main criticisms that I've been reading about in terms of the runtime of this film is how people felt that it was too overlong and that it could have been cut short. Well, most Stephen King novelizations that are adapted into the cinematic format tend to be more on the lengthy side, whether it's Christine, Cujo, Salem's Lot, the Stand miniseries, even the It miniseries, the first It Chapter 1 and then It Chapter 2, Shawshank Redemption, The Mist, Pet Sematary, The Dead Zone. I mean, usually any Stephen King novel that is going to be transitioned into a film format is more or less going to be on the lengthy side, because it's all about trying to capture and incorporate as much elements from his original work into one film. Sometimes it's successful and sometimes it isn't. Either way, I didn't necessarily feel the film was too long. It was just right, and it managed to really incorporate virtually almost everything from the book that I was expecting. Another source of controversy is the beginning scene with Adrian Mellon, who is viciously murdered by the citizens of Derry because of him being a homosexual with his boyfriend. This is exactly what happens in the book. This was one of the most horrifying scenes in the film, and that's saying a lot. The fact that it was so brutal and in your face and bloody, and just you almost as if that you could feel literally every bone in his face breaking. And when they threw him over the bridge and into the water, and you see Pennywise reaching out for him, I knew exactly where it happened in the book and what was going to transpire. And needless to say, the only difference between that scene in the book and in the scene in the film is the fact that in the book, Pennywise bit into his armpit and left him to bleed out essentially. In the film, he bit into his chest and took his heart out, which is still a very chilling moment in the film. They all of a sudden you see all the balloons, all the endless, limitless balloons just descending onto Derry, and that was a creepy visual. But again, they managed to capture the brutality of that scene from the book, and it's not an easy scene to watch. I will admit to that myself. It's very hardcore. It's very unapologetic, I've seen a few articles talk about how It Chapter 2 is very, I guess, homophobic. And it's not necessarily homophobic, it's really displaying the grip that Pennywise has on the citizens of Derry, that Pennywise is a prejudice. Pennywise does not care about the race. Pennywise does not care about the sexual orientation. Pennywise does not care if this person is an adult or a child. He is evil incarnate. He is an ancient evil that has existed before time itself. I mean, we're talking about an entity that has existed for billions and billions and billions and billions of years, and he feasts on whatever. He feasts on fear. And the fact that he feasted on a homosexual doesn't necessarily make it a homophobic character. It is what it is. And he is evil for the sake of being evil. And that's what I mentioned in my review. And my review with Doctor Strange is that I typically have appreciation for villains who actually have a true villain motivation, where it's not necessarily a tragedy that has occurred in his or her or its life. It's evil for the sake of being evil. Another interesting scene from the book that I felt was captured, could have been a little bit better, but it was still disturbing in how it was presented, was the Asian diner scene, where eventually the Losers Club starts experiencing all these different hallucinations that are happening out of the fortune cookies. And one of my main gripes with the first It Chapter 1 is how in a horror film they typically rely too much on the element of CGI. And with the scene with the fortune cookies, you have the insect that is emerging out of the cookie with the face of a baby, was a disturbing effect. but it would have been so much better and more frightening if it was it was utilized more in the practical way. And either way, the scene is still disturbing, but it just would have been better if it was more focused on the puppetry and the practical effects. Because that scene in the book and the scene in the film, it happens exactly like that. I mean, the book is a lot more bloody and more grotesque, but either way, it succeeded with what it was attempting to convey in terms of the monumental moment of the scene where the Losers Club is coming together and trying to come to grips with what they remember from Derry. Another interesting scene was the scene with the girl Vicky, where she's watching the game with her mom, and her mom is completely ignoring the existence of her daughter, and that's what Pennywise uses to his advantage to entice the little girl to his domain in the dark, if you will. And it shows you that the book went into a lot more detail. That's what Stephen King is brilliant for. The book explains, and even in the first film to a certain degree, how it explains how Derry is more or less shrouded by the spirit, by the power of Pennywise, and it's touched upon in this film here, but it's not necessarily expanded upon the way it has been in the book. The book describes it so much better and is in much detail, but it did succeed with what was it more or less explains right then and there. Hey, Pennywise has really shrouded the mental and spiritual state of the citizens of Derry. Still, whenever I watch that scene, I'm thinking, considering that it's in modern times, it's very interesting when you watch it and you're thinking to yourself, man, if any child happened upon a clown in the dark, and this clown is attempting to lure them into their space, the kid's gonna run away. I don't care how curious the kid is running away. But it shows you, it really beautifully captures how Pennywise is able to lure kids into a real, true, false sense of security, and that's when he terrorizes them and feasts on them. The Henry Bowers material is it was one of my favorite parts of the book, is the fact that it went much deeper into the psyche of Henry Bowers. Obviously, the book, he was raised by a racist father, and he in turn grew up as a racist and was very cruel and evil to animals. So you definitely didn't sympathize with him in any regard. But in the book, they went much deeper into why he is the way he is. In this film in particular, it's very abrupt. He shows up, and much like in the book, that's when he starts seeing the balloons, and Pennywise is using the hallucinations of his friends to entice him to complete his task and murder the Losers Club. That is it's very in tune with the book, but in the book, he is visited by more than one hallucination. So I think that's going to be more expanded upon in possibly the director's cut, or maybe if they decide to re-release a much longer cut into theaters. But either way, it was captured just fine in the film, but it happened. It's very faithful to what transpired in the book. Another source of discussion that I've read about was how Richie, in this film, Richie is hinted at being a homosexual. Now, upon reading the book, I didn't necessarily capture all the hints, so I didn't really view Richie as a homosexual, but it is confirmed in this film that he is very much... The secret that he's hiding from everybody is the fact that he's gay. I didn't really necessarily care about that, honestly. I'm actually glad that it wasn't inexplicably stated, because you have a lot of people nowadays who feel as though that film is becoming more of an agenda rather than being an entertaining format. And if it was revealed, if Richie said, "Oh, I'm a homosexual," then you have a lot of people who's going to start complaining. Oh, they're trying to make it into a social justice warrior film, and I hate those type of complaints. As if in a horror film you can't have gay people, as if that there are no gay people in real life. Look, people, seriously, get over it. There are gay people, there are lesbians, there are transgender. Look, if it's not bothering you, get over it. But either way, I thought it was touched upon and hinted at very nicely in the film. And Bill Hader, once again, does an amazing job with Richie. One sense of, I don't want to say inclusion, is the Maturin the turtle does not make an appearance in the film. I can remember reading the book and thinking, where in the film is the turtles going to show up? You have little bits and pieces of the turtle references in It Chapter 1 and in It Chapter 2, but I was trying to find where is this inclusion going to make sense? And before anyone gets confused, there is no big battle between the turtle and Pennywise. The turtle exists in his own macroverse and doesn't necessarily play a huge role. He plays a huge role, but at the same time, he's central to the story, but he doesn't make necessarily an appearance in terms of trying to battle Pennywise. He is one of Pennywise's arch enemies, but at the same time, he exists in his own macroverse as a particular guardian who stays within his shell, and he is the one who gives power to the Losers Club to combat Pennywise by believing in themselves. That is removed from the film, and I'm actually kind of glad they did remove that, because I don't think a lot of the audience would have actually got it. It just would have felt tacked on, and they probably wouldn't have taken it as seriously as they did when the Losers Club eventually starts believing in themselves and making Pennywise feel small, which was a very cool scene in and of itself. Another complaint that I heard is how I overheard one customer state that he didn't understand why Pennywise was a spider in his final form. Pennywise's final form isn't a spider to the degree. The spider form is about as closest to the human mind that can comprehend what Pennywise's form really is. Pennywise's true form is the Deadlights, what's behind the Deadlights. And the Deadlights is what drives people insane when he manages to imprison them. And basically the Deadlights, the spider is a lot more grotesque in the book compared to the film. And that was one of my complaints with the final product of the film. I really was hoping that Pennywise's spider form was going to be more to the effect of being disturbing, chilling, grotesque, and being more of a gelantless, evil thing. But it became, for me, it reminded me of the Scorpion King with The Rock. Much better CGI, mind you, but it just reminded me more of that than anything that's supposed to be physically terrifying. But what saved it is Bill Skarsgård being absolutely amazing. The Tom Rogan and Beverly material from the book is not focused upon in the film, which that'll probably be in the director's cut as well in the re-release. In the book, Tom Rogan is a lot more vicious and more persistent in trying to find Beverly. I also really enjoy the fact that they didn't include the sexual affair between Bill and Beverly, whereas it made Bill that much more of a prick in the book, whereas he has an affair with Beverly and still goes back to his wife and loves his wife as if nothing happened. That is one of my main complaints with the book. But either way, the film is very faithful to the book. It incorporates as much as it possibly can within the confines of the film, and I really enjoyed it. I thought it was amazing. I thought they captured the essence and the atmosphere of the book very vividly, and anything more than that would have more or less put the film into a 4 to 5 6 hour category. So either way, I think it's very important to be happy with what we received, and I enjoyed it. Most likely there's going to be another spoiler talk. I'm not exactly sure when I'm going to post it, but either way, let me know in the comment section what you thought, and maybe we can have a discussion. Provide a like. I still am not sure what my next review is going to be. I will have to once again look at the listing, but either way, I hope to see you guys again, and be safe and take care, my friends. Peace.